India development debate, we have spoken about the water crisis staring in Chennai. This may be a temporary one. Hopefully, there will be good monsoon soon and all will be well in Chennai. But the fact is, it's not only about one city. It is about a situation. Water scarcity could be a reality sooner than later in India and in different parts of the world. And we want to keep our focus on the water issue and the solving of the water crisis. So we're going to speak to a slew of experts over the next few days on this, and today we're joined by Ravi Narayanan, who is the chair of Asia Pacific Water Forum. Mr. Narayanan, thank you for joining us. Now, here at the India Development Debate, we want to keep our focus on what could be a really big crisis of water scarcity across the country. We've already seen some signs of it. Do you think that what's happened in Chennai is a warning sign for water security all across India?
It is, and it's not a surprise. The warnings from Chennai have been there for many years. And the reservoirs going dry, the situation may not have been as dire as this, but certainly in the past there have been serious crises earlier, from which we haven't learnt all the lessons.
So how dire is the situation in India and in various parts of India?
The water security can be looked at in many dimensions. I'll just quickly go through 5. One is domestic water supply, and that's the problem you hear about most acutely, particularly in the summer season, and that's drinking water and domestic needs. But there's also water supply security in terms of productive use. And when I say productive use, I mean for irrigation, I mean for power supply, and for industry. And there is a trade-off between these two that has to be managed. Then there is environmental water security. Then there is urban water security that has its own challenges because of the large concentrations of people in this country in urban centers. And then finally, there is the water security that is resilience against disasters, which a lot of people don't think about until the disaster actually strikes. And the disaster could be sudden onset disasters such as floods and so on, but it could also be slow onset disasters such as drought. So you have to look at water in all these dimensions. In India, the particular and peculiar feature of the Indian water situation is that we are the largest user of groundwater in the world, much larger than the US and China combined. And so you can imagine what the scale of the problem is. So we need a dedicated program of mapping all the underground aquifers all across the country, in urban centers and in the rural centers.
That's right.
To an accuracy that can allow us to draw up water security plans. That's the first step. Now, this is being done, but it needs to be done at an accelerated pace. The second point is that we need a dedicated capacity of people who can sense local water aquifers and be able to draw up local water security plans, particularly in villages. We hear about the urban situation, but I'm sure villages are in an equally, if not more distressed situation often, and we don't hear about that often. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So we need to look at that. And then we need a regulatory framework that is able to manage the trade-off between industry and agriculture and energy consumption of water. So all these three things have to be done. Many organizations have said there are 3 I's that are necessary. The I for infrastructure, the I for information, that means citizens need to be properly informed. There needs to be a campaign that informs people of the dire situation and their role, that is demand management, not to waste water, use it wisely, etc.
Yes.
And then there is information, infrastructure, and institutions. And the institutions are the ones that ensure that the money that is spent on these on this situation is used properly and sensibly.
You know, I want you to comment on what the government's plan currently is. So there is a new Jal Shakti ministry. There is a promise to bring piped water to every household in the next 5 years. Considering the possibility of water scarcity, and like I said, we're seeing it geographically in different parts of India at various times now. Should the priority be to bring piped water to people's homes or deal first with the possible water scarcity?
Well, first of all, the idea of converging drinking water and sanitation and water resources under one ministry is a very sensible and long overdue measure. So I think that is a very good first step. Having done that, the idea, because the human call for water supply, that is domestic, is the first call, and concentrating on that, as has been done in the case of the sanitation campaign, is the right step. The challenge is going to be to meet the resources that are available with the objectives that are planned for. But if there is dedicated attention, it can be done.
Well, in your view, geographically in India, what are the main areas of vulnerability and what do we need to do on a priority basis?
Well, the first thing is institutional divergence rather than convergence. So I think that's important. We all need to look at the problem as our problem, whether we are agriculturalists or whether we are urban dwellers or anything else. This is all our problem, and the administration needs to reflect that so that we can all try and arrive at a common situation that is acceptable to everybody. Then the states need to get together to say that water is not my resource or your resource, but it's our resource, a common property resource. Now that's a mental shift that has to be accepted by everybody, which is why I said the idea of an information campaign is so important.
Do you have any message?
Once
Mr.
that
Narayanan?
is done,
yes,
then of course the plans can be drawn up. But the fundamental basis for the plans
yes,
needs to be an inventory of all the water resources that we have and modeling for the future. What is the likely demand going to be and what is the supply situation? There are challenges, of course, because as we've seen this year, the monsoon's been delayed, there's climate change and so on. But one's got to plan for those exigencies, and it can be done. I mean, in a country like India with its with the scientific resources that are now available globally, we can work together. But the important thing is the institutional framework has to be clear, and the messaging also has to be very, very uncluttered.
yeah. Absolutely. As we end this conversation, Mr. Narayanan, do you have any message for our viewers who are watching right now and to whom we want to convey the severity of the issue that we're dealing with?
Well, the message is water is our problem, your problem, my problem, not just the government's problem. It's all our problem. And we all have to put our shoulders to the wheel and work together. And that will mean some degree of compromise here, there and everywhere, and we have to be prepared to make it for the common good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Narayanan, for speaking with us. And here on the show, we are going to keep up our focus on this campaign to bring attention to the water crisis that India is facing, to bring the government's attention to it. We want you to contribute as well. Give us your feedback. Tell us of ways that you're thinking of to conserve water. It is more important than you think. And as we wrap up today, I just want to leave you with the story of Hardeep Kaur or Hardcore. She's a rapper. She put out a few social media tweets. And she has now been charged with other things, including the sedition law. Now, her remarks online were against UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat. She made various claims and a case was filed saying that this was offensive. This is not the first time this has happened. Unfortunately, it won't be the last time that thin-skinned politicians or people in power invoke strict and stringent laws against things put out on social media. If there's defamation, well, take the person to court for defaming you. But should sedition be applicable here, and when will this stop? I'll leave you with that food for thought, and thank you once again for joining us on the show.